Hey y'all, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to send Pro Tools sessions over the internet in order to collaborate with others. A lot of times Pro Tools sessions can be unnecessarily large due to old takes and old comps that we're not using that can unnecessarily bloat the session size and make it more difficult to send over the internet via Google Drive or WeTransfer or wherever. So I'm going to show you how to consolidate the session down to as small as it can possibly be. That makes sending over the internet a lot more easy. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is go to File, Save As. Now I'm going to basically create a copy. That way if we ruin anything or delete any audio, we always have a session to go back to and we're not permanently deleting anything. So I'm just going to name this Cleanup. So next I'm going to delete any unused playlist. We can go to literally any track and select the playlist drop down button and click on Delete Unused. Now this menu displays all the unused playlists that we can delete. So I'm going to select them all by clicking on the first track, holding Shift and clicking on the last track. Now I'm going to click on Delete. Next I'm going to delete any unnecessary audio that we're not using. Here we have our clips list over here. And I'm going to select all unused audio by hitting the hotkey Command-Shift-U. Now I'm going to delete it all by hitting Command-Shift-B. Now we don't want to move it to trash or delete it, we just want to remove it from this specific session that we just created. So I'm going to click on Remove. And as you can see, that consolidated it down pretty significantly. The next thing we want to think about is printing any plugins that are necessary to the sound of a track. For example, I have a lot of guitars here and they are all recorded DI going through these amp sims. Now if you were to send this to somebody else that doesn't have these plugins, they would just hear a DI guitar. And for example, these are pretty heavily distorted doubled guitars, and it would just sound really weird if you just sent them, DIs. It sounds really weak and strange and doesn't make sense in the context of the song. So we can select any track that we want to print plugins to by right-clicking on it and hitting Commit. Now we can click OK, and as you can see here, it printed the plugin. I have some stereo delays going on in this guitar, and so it printed a stereo file. So once we've printed all our audio, cleaned up the session, got rid of any unnecessary audio, we can go to File, Save Copy In. So the most important thing you want to make sure of is that audio files right here is selected, because basically we're going to create a new folder that just contains the session file and any necessary audio tracks. And make sure our sample rate and bit depth are correct right here. We can even go back and save Pro Tools 7 through 9 files, any legacy file. Right now we're going to just select latest and hit OK. So now if we go to our desktop, we can see that it just created a folder with the session and just the necessary audio. It's much smaller. And now we can right click on this and hit compress to compress the folder in order to send it over the internet. Now if we right click and click on Get Info right here, we can see that it's 612 megabytes as opposed to 1 gigabyte, almost cut it down by 50%. When you have sessions that have a lot of drum takes specifically, that have 12 microphones on the drums, this becomes even more important and more significant. If somebody is working outside of Pro Tools in another DAW, what we can do in order to collaborate with them is to print stems. This will take all the audio and we'll print it to the exact same start and end points so that they can import the audio into their DAW. What we want to do is create start and end markers. We can create any marker by selecting a place on the timeline and hitting enter near the number pad and creating that marker. We'll now select our all group, select start, hold shift and select end. Now we'll print all the audio with Option Shift 3. That then printed all the tracks to the exact same start and end marker. We can now export these tracks with the hotkey Command-Shift-K. So let's choose. Command-D goes straight to the desktop. I'm going to click on Open. I'm going to click on New Folder, and I'm going to title it Stems. Open. Now make sure that it's wave, full quality, interleaved, we don't want mono, and that the bit depth and sample rate match that of the session. Now I'm going to click on Export. Now we can see here the stems folder got created with all the necessary audio. We can then right click and compress it, and we end up with a compressed stems folder that we can send over the internet. Just as an example to check our work, we can see that the original audio is 1.81 gigs. I know when I checked that later, it was barely over a gig, so I think it miscalculated it. It's a lot larger now. 1.81 gigs. The cleaned up Pro Tools session is about 600 megabytes. In the stems audio only is 300. So these are significantly smaller. That makes it much easier to send and collaborate. One useful trick in collaborating with others is to import session data. We will access this by hitting the hotkey Option-Shift-I. We can now import session data from an external session. So let's go to this other session, click on it and select open. Now here are all the tracks that are located within that session. So say I want to import the plate reverb that was used in that session. We can even send it to a destination. If I already have an existing plate reverb track that I want to import the information from this one, I can do that, or I can just set it to a new track. Track data to import is very important. We can select choose and have a lot of options here that we can either select or deselect. So as you can see here, it took the plate reverb that I had in that other session. I hope this video was informative. Keep in mind that there are a variety of ways to accomplish every single task in Pro Tools, so experiment with it and figure out what method works best for you.